Go blue, everybody. Michigan won the national championship, and now it's the aftermath. Next on Michigan Wolverines Live. And welcome back to another episode of Michigan Wolverines Live here this Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. My name is John Diadamo, and I'm going to be taking you through the next hour or so. A couple of things before we bring on our special guest. I am going to ask everybody to please hit the like button, subscribe to Michigan Football at the Voice of College Football, and if you can, take this YouTube link and just share it with somebody. Put it on a Facebook group, put it on a Discord chat, whatever you want. Just share it somewhere. Let people know that we're live. And tell everybody. And of course, send a super chat. We do have a guest this week, so we may not get to a ton of your comments. So to make sure your comment or question is read on screen, go ahead and send that super chat, and you will get to the front of the line of what we could do. So to help us break down what's going on, I thought it was time to bring back a guest we've had a couple of times, and we wanted to bring him back, host of Good Afternoon Michigan Football and part of Maize and Blue Review. Dennis Fithian's back with us. Go Blue, Dennis. Great to have you back.
Good to see you, John. Good to be here.
Boy, it's been one heck of a couple of days, huh?
It's been a great week. You know, I go back to 97. I was 26 years old. I can remember working on the radio board in Ann Arbor, and Doug Karsh, who was doing the play-by-play for the championship game. He was in Pasadena, and I was running the board. He put the headset on Ryan Leaf, and there was huge feedback. And it was like, man, but Leaf was, was really nice about it and everything else. But, that was a great day. And somewhere over the next few years, I said, if Michigan just could win one more, that would be all I would ask for in my life. I know a lot of Lion fans, and I know that's appropriate right now talking about that. They've been saying that for years. They just want to see it for their dad or their uncle or themselves or whatever before they die. They say things like that. And, this time around, I'm married. And so I wanted to be able to share that with my wife and my family. And I was watching, my daughter was watching the game with me. I'm so happy for all the Michigan fans. It's so hard to do. It really is. I don't want it to be just a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I would like to see them win others, but it might not be. It's one of those things. Like, heck, a couple of days ago, I was talking about a dynasty and Harbaugh and McCarthy coming back, and that was real. And that might not be so real as we sit here and talk about that today. So, soaking it in, just real appreciative of everybody out there that likes Michigan and knows how to enjoy it. I went down to that parade. I was not thinking that I was going to go to that parade, John. I was looking at the temperature. They're talking about this cold Arctic
negative wind chill.
Yeah, I don't mind actually the cold. I hate the wind chill. I don't know anybody that likes the wind chill, but when they're talking about it being -0, I was thinking, I don't know. Do I really just want to go stand down on the street there? But, my wife and my daughter wanted to go, and I did. And, so that was a good time, though, going down there. I bundled up and, seeing the team go down State Street. It felt like, being at a game, after coming home. And I knew, my daughter, she said, I might not ever – I'll remember this for the rest of my life. And I'm thinking, you know what? Yeah, you probably will remember that for the rest of your life. Hopefully you get a chance to go to some more parades and everything else. But out of my lifetime, think about it, the Tigers, they're just a freshman in high school. You probably weren't even born yet. But then, I had the Pistons win 3 championships, and all those are very special. The Red Wings won so many, and it was so awesome. But it's been a while since, they're pretty good this year. But you don't get that many. And, of course, the Michigan basketball team in 89, they've been to a finals, I think 4 times since then. But, that's been it. So Michigan, this football team, hopefully they're able to get back, and they might. What's going to happen in the next couple minutes maybe is going to go a long way in deciding maybe how soon that they might be able to get back and challenge for it. So, that's where things are at right now on this. What do we have? It's Tuesday, right?
Yeah. And I've told everybody, soak this in, because so many people are about to leave the program. People are going to come in from the transfer portal as well. You're going to see freshmen take their first snaps as a starter, and it's going to look different. No matter what happens, it's going to look different. So soak it in. Michigan won an undisputed national championship, period. And enjoy it however you feel. Unfortunately, I was saddled with tonsillitis. Literally, that happened like right after Michigan beats Alabama. So of course, I'm doing all my media hits for that week, and I've got the cough drops and the tea and everything going. I'm like, I'm not gonna let myself be down for the count on this. Like, what? How many times does Michigan win the Natty? So it's been an interesting couple weeks, but it happened, and Harbaugh held up that trophy. JJ McCarthy tossed the trophy, and luckily he was able to toss it to Sanders still, and I believe that's like a $300,000 trophy. So I'm glad he was able to successfully execute one final catch for Michigan. But so here we go. The aftermath, and those of you who are familiar, obviously Eminem is big on this word, aftermath, and so I kind of thought of that when coming up with this, and what's next for the program. And Dennis, you and I talked before the show, and we were talking about elite programs have change happen. Even the best who ever did it, Nick Saban, lost his coordinators practically every year. Right? He was winning titles, but he had to change coordinators like he was changing his clothes. You had Lane Kiffin, you had Sark, you had Bill O'Brien. I mean, every year it felt like they were getting someone new, and players were coming in and out. So this question about who's staying and who's going, you have to remember this discussion about Jim Harbaugh has been going on for years, right? Because he's one of the only college coaches, if not right now the only college coach, who's won at such a high level in the NFL. I mean, how many other college coaches right now have even head coached in the NFL, let alone was one play away from winning a Super Bowl? So it's a unique situation. But here's what I've been able to dig up, and then Dennis would love to hear your take on it. So here at Voice of College Football, we try to practice Big J journalism, and so I wanted to get someone actually in the program. I wanted to get them to actually respond to a question, even if it was generic like this is. So we got Michigan Regent Jordan Acker, who basically said, "Hey, I'll take a few questions after the special Board of Regents meeting, maybe." And I pushed for it, and I said, "Look, there's a lot of talk right now about the contract for Jim Harbaugh. Whatever it takes, can we just get this thing done?" And so Jordan, Regent Acker responds with two things. Number one, he loves Coach Harbaugh. He thinks he's the best coach in the country and wants him to coach at Michigan for as long as he would like. And number two, I am not interested in negotiating through the public or through the press, which that's fair, because that's normally how contract negotiations are supposed to go. The only reason we know about all this is because someone, I have my theories on who, has been dripping these leaks out about what Coach Harbaugh's looking for, whether it's immunity from the NCAA, whether it's more money for assistants or NIL or whatever. But now we're hearing more and more it might be because, he's trying to protect himself if the NCAA comes down. And he believes he's innocent, and I believe he believes he's innocent. But it doesn't mean the NCAA won't suspend him. And so there's a lot that's going on. So, Dennis, whether he stays at Michigan or he goes to the Chargers, he had an interview there. or whether now the Cowboys might be interested because Jerry is tired of losing in the first round of the playoffs. Dennis, what's your take on all of this? And kind of where do you think things are headed here?
Well, I think if it was up to Acker, then Jim Harbaugh would be back at Michigan. So he's done everything that he can. And I think the regions have done everything they can. And I think the president has done everything that he can. I don't know about Ward Manuel if he has done everything, but I think that both sides, both Ward Manuel and Jim Harbaugh's camp, they are both negotiating in the press. That has been going on for quite a while. It went on last year like this. And, the bottom line, if Jim Harbaugh wanted to be at Michigan, he could be at Michigan. Now, I've spent a couple hours on the phone with pro Harbaugh insiders who are telling me that I'm wrong about that no, Jim Harbaugh wants to be at Michigan and he just needs to get this protection, this Bill Self NCAA clause that the Kansas basketball coach had. They need everybody to line up. You need to have your allies ready to go to the war and be in lockstep and everything, and get behind Harbaugh. That's what Harbaugh's camp thinks, and yet Harbaugh is out there, and we know what he's doing with the NFL. So, look, if you're a big time Michigan fan and you watch this, you want to believe that Jim Harbaugh is just doing this and that hopefully it falls apart and he comes back to Michigan, because all that stuff that you mentioned earlier about, you win a championship and you got to, replace the assistants and everything else. Yeah, that's par for the course with a good team, but it's not losing the head guy. The most important thing in college football is the head coach. Last year, Michigan lost both of their coordinators. This year, they had a different coordinator, and we know how it worked out. It's about the head guy. So if they get Jim Harbaugh back, even though all of the guys that they lost and and everything that's going on and the delay with the transfer portal and recruiting, all of that can be salvaged, but it's about getting the head guy back. But I'd say this when it comes to Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh said after 2020, he was at a news conference and he fired back at one of the journalists who was like, well, Jim, were you ever interested in the Bears or something? Like Mike Tomlin was upset, after he lost to the Bills and walked out. And Harbaugh got a little testy with the reporter. He said, look, believe what you see with my actions. That's what he said. It was something very close to that.
Yeah.
And I've watched him with his actions. And, 2 years ago, he was out in Minnesota. Looked like he wanted an NFL job there. That thing didn't happen. Last year, he talked to two different teams. After the year before, he said he wasn't going to talk to any teams. So he doesn't want, he has not wanted to sign a contract, even with all this stuff that's out there now. He doesn't want to sign a new contract until the middle of February, for a month from right now. You just have to ask yourself, why is that? I would think it's because he wants to talk with the NFL. He wants to be wooed. And if he gets the answer that he is looking for, if they meet his demands, you're talking about Jerry Jones. If the fit is right, then I do think that he'll end up in the NFL.
Dennis, I've used this analogy before, and I still think it's true, even though Harbaugh's now won the national championship. Apparently, by the way, he did get an offer at the Broncos. That's what I've heard from a couple different reporters, that the Broncos did offer him and he turned it down. He may have used it as leverage to get more for assistance, but he turned it down. So he doesn't always go for it. It does have to be, like you said, the right fit. But let's look at this idea. So imagine that you're Jim Harbaugh and you're at the Thanksgiving table, right? And I've said this for months, and we had a show on this called The Last Dance probably like 5-6 months ago. And your brother, who you're uber competitive, who you've been uber competitive with since the womb, basically, has that Super Bowl ring. And not only does he have that Super Bowl ring, but he beat you with it by literally the skin of his teeth. That game came down, like I'd say in today's game, that would have been DPI. Kaepernick runs it in for 1 yard, gets a touchdown, wins a Super Bowl. So John Harbaugh's got that Super Bowl ring And Jim Harbaugh's got, at that Thanksgiving table, and he's like, man, could have been me. And so how uber competitive he is, I think that bug is always going to be there, that he was so close to winning a Super Bowl and he just didn't quite get it done. So I could see him going for that reason. Take everything else off the table. Even if he got the NCAA immunity that he's reportedly looking for, I just don't necessarily see that. He's won all there is to win in college now. He's beat Ohio 3 times. He's won the Big Ten championship 3 times. And now he gets the final monkey off of his back, or the final 2 monkeys, because it was can't win a playoff game. And then, well, maybe he'll win a playoff game, but there's no way he's winning the national championship. Well, there's nothing left to get off his back in college. He's done it all. So I just think that might be something that's eating at him. Are your Harbaugh people kind of thinking about that too? Like that it might be, he just might want a crack at a Super Bowl.
No, the Harbaugh people are thinking that he wants to stay around.
Okay.
And he wants to be at Michigan. And, you can make the argument, their argument. I'll make their argument that he's very comfortable in Ann Arbor. His wife loves Ann Arbor. He lives on the street with his dad. His kids are in the Ann Arbor schools. His daughter is right. And he's coaching with his son. Those are all things that, he loves. He was quoted a couple years ago saying, the Super Bowl is the one thing that is that missing piece. So, it's I think he said, it's the highest accomplishment you can have in his profession. And that's when he was still coaching at Michigan. So obviously that's out there, but we've talked about this, for 3 years, and it's always been, well, if you win a championship, what else left? To your point there, it's like JJ McCarthy. A lot of people were hoping that he was going to stay around, saying, I don't think he's ready and all this other stuff. And his legend is cemented in Ann Arbor with a 27-1 record. Jim Harbaugh, people are mad about, this dalliance with the NFL teams, January Jim and everything. But that's just because they want him to coach at Michigan. And his legend is cemented as well. And, I guess he could go and win another one and, they've just making this dynasty and everything else. But, in my mind, he's the greatest Michigan football coach ever, what he was able to do a week from yesterday. So it's all adding up to me that if he can get out there, he is somebody that, and I know from talking with his the Harbaugh insiders, that he wants, if he sits down, Jerry Jones is the kind of guy that can do this. If he sits down and says, look, man, we just want a championship. Everything that we can do, we're obsessed. All of what we can do with our resources, calling the shots, we're in with you, thick and thin. You're calling the shots. Let's go to war. And that's the kind of thing that Harbaugh wants to hear. That's what he wants to hear, according to his guys from Michigan. And that's what he wants to hear from these NFL guys. The one thing about the Chargers, I know Spanos, and he was in San Diego originally. He played for the Chargers the last 2 years, and quarterback in the NFL. All those connections that he has. You have to go to a silent count in LA now, because 60%, 70% of the fans are, for the other team. That, I don't know how any coach, Harbaugh included, even if they're winning, is going to be able to change that around, because the LA fan base, the weather is so nice. People don't care like they do around here, and like they do in Dallas, and like they do in Philadelphia. And it's the NFC. Those are the teams, to me, that I think will hit when it comes down to Harbaugh. But if you're a Michigan fan and you're holding on the hope, and I think you still can do that, I don't think it's a done deal, even though I'm making that prediction, because you asked me for that prediction. You sit there, and there might be some people that are like, I don't know, Harbaugh's a real tough cookie. He loves chaos, and it could fall apart. It could fall apart, absolutely. And he could be back at Michigan. That's, he's obviously, when you win a championship, you're in a great spot. Jim Harbaugh's in a great spot. whatever he wants. The world's his oyster. He can play all of these teams and get down there. He can listen to all of their pitches, and then he can sit back and talk to his wife and you say, hey, you know what? Do you want to go to Dallas for 125 million? Like, well, these are tough choices and everything. And that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, it is hard to believe that Jerry Jones, infamous for keeping laser control over his program, is willing to give that up. Because
I don't know, like you say that, and then his son got in there, and his son was like, "Look, we're not going for Randy Moss. We're going to pick an offensive lineman and even an offensive guard." And Jerry allowed his son to do that. He gave him the rope. They said Jerry will never get back with Jimmy Johnson because those guys had a divorce. They can't talk with one another. And then this year they were down there talking about how about all those Cowboys and putting it up in the Ring of Honor and anything else. Jerry Jones, like, he wants to win. And, sitting up in that box like he was this weekend, watching his team crumble after having the kind of season that they had, he's only got so many more kicks at the can. I could easily see him being like, Harbaugh's the guy we want. Like, I can make a case for Harbaugh with all the teams. So,
yeah, and he has kind of reconciled with Jimmy Johnson lately, and maybe he put a bug in Jerry's ear, like, hey, like, you want a Super Bowl, like, let somebody run this thing. I don't know, because that's what
Bill Belichick, you want Jim Harbaugh. I mean, what are you going to do if you're Jerry
Belichick? And Jimmy Jones has the money, in his supervillain yacht that we all got to see in 2020 when the draft was held at everybody's house, and we saw his supervillain yacht, and we saw Bill Belichick with his dog, and it was a great. It was like one of maybe 3 or 4 things I actually enjoyed about that time period was that draft and seeing everybody's house and stuff. But yeah, I mean, he's clearly got the money to do it and to give Jim what he wants. But one thing I do want to push back on some people in chat. We do have resident Buckeyes that come in and comment, of course.
Let's see what they have to say.
And so we have one that was talking about the Ed talking about the NCAA. I have to pull it. Let's see if I can pull it back up again. But essentially, it was something about the contract having, if it had a clause for immunity, that means, here it is. Yeah, I want a contract where I can't get fired for cheating and getting caught. Ed, and by the way, this isn't just Ed. I'm not only putting Ed on blast. I'm hearing this all over Twitter from Buckeye people. And here's the thing. 2 things can be true. Thing number 1, Jim Harbaugh genuinely believes he's innocent. The coaching staff, other than Stallions, is innocent. He could genuinely believe that and yet still understand that the NCAA is a loose cannon and could basically do whatever they want, even if they can't quite find the bylaw like to the letter that they broke. Because 11.6.1, you can argue it was written for staff scouting, not for, hiring some buddies to go with iPhones to scout. So, the NCAA could still slap Michigan with a 2-year suspension for Harbaugh and so on and so on. And so I think that it's reasonable, knowing that the NCAA is kind of out for blood and to show that they're relevant still, that he wants some protections in his contract. I don't think that that's that crazy of an ask. What do you think, Dennis?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's 2 things to go through there with what Ed has to say and what you had to say. I think what you have to say is right on. And, Harbaugh 2 years ago, he didn't have an agent. He didn't have all these lawyers. He didn't have all these things. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to start getting agents and, putting them to work. And so he's got Yee, who's one of the best in the NFL, going around. And when they look at this contract, any lawyer or agent that's worth their salt is going to go through these contracts and say, hey, look, let's ask for protection. We can ask for anything we want because we're in the catbird seat. So let's ask for, in the NCAA, even Ed, he says he's an Ohio State fan, whatever, he's talking about the cheating angle. the thing about it is that you can't predict what the NCAA is going to do. Ed can't predict what they're going to do. We saw the president of the NCAA come out and say, hey, well, they're all good. Everything's good there. But, he's not on the infractions committee, so he doesn't really know. It was nice to hear about that. They could come back over the top. Harbaugh was not cooperating with them. They could come for some other stuff. And, we don't really know what was going on. We were talking about coordinators earlier with Matt Weiss. Well, who knows what that situation is? Hopefully it's nothing, and it was just something personal there. But you're protecting your money. That's what lawyers do. That's what agents do. And as far as anybody that wants to play, the big fat cheaters and everything else, this is the way I look at the championship. Michigan got the championship. I'm happy about it, and all the Michigan fans that I know are happy about it. I think it's a win-win as I've gone through it this week. Is you can be an Ohio State fan, you can be a Michigan State fan, you can say, oh, but you guys had to cheat. Say, go ahead. If that's making you feel better to talk about that's how you got it, then go ahead. It doesn't bother me. Do it. Do it all the time. You win and Michigan wins and everybody feels good. So I was out there at the parade and, guess what? It was a lot of fun. And if it makes you feel better when you get up and say, oh, those dirty, rotten cheater, go ahead. Everybody wins. Michigan won the national championship in Ohio State. Michigan State fans could feel good that, they feel like Michigan was untoward in being able to get there. And I would just tell you to look at all sports in the 21st century, from the Patriots. You start looking at all these teams and what you have to do to go out there and win. And then, whatever it's going to be able to make you sleep at night, if you're coming on to a Michigan chat and calling them names because they won the national championship. So you're trying to, hurt somebody's feelings. Nobody's feelings are hurt. And I'm glad that you guys have a little out where it can make you feel good about the whole thing, because I can tell you, everybody feels good that's wearing maize and blue.
Absolutely. Whatever makes you feel good, whatever helps you sleep at night, if Buckeyes and MSU fans need a little something to comfort them, good for them.
Yeah, you got it. You guys got your win. There's your dub. You got it. Counter Stallions is your W. You can take that to your grave.
And Moose, who I know hangs out over on your stuff as well. Michigan
Moose is
won
one of
Natty.
the greatest Michigan fans out there.
There you go. Michigan won the Natty, and he's right. Even the NCAA president would in a rare W for them. He did come out and say Michigan won the national championship fair and square, in quotes, because that's what he said verbatim, fair and square. So whatever happens with the 2021 season, 2022 season, and halfway through 23, you know what? That title ain't going anywhere. That title, I think we saw there that whatever else they do, they're not taking the title. So that's really all I needed. They can suspend, they can do fines, but as long as they don't take the title, I'm good.
I got news for you. I watched the game a week ago, and they're not erasing that from me. So they can try snatching, or I know it was a bad day last week I was just talking about it was a win for MSU and OSU fans because they're allowed to, talk about cheating. But that was a bad day for them that were, talking about vacating and everything else when the president came out and talked about legit and all good and everything else. That was that. I mean, I know that had to hurt. So they had to go back to, mid-season, start talking about Stallions again. But, hey, you got to, what else are you going to do? You're going to be an OSU fan and be like, hey, congratulations, guys. Really hope you're happy with, the success that you've had and being able to get there. And, you guys turned the tables, beat us 3 years in a row. Congratulations. You don't get many of those.
There you go. They won that's their Super Bowl. That's what they got. But
right now, MSU, they're not going to be in any Super Bowl for a very long time. And OSU, they got so comfortable. Like, what am I going to say to a Ohio State fan? All the years that they were beating Michigan year after year. I would feel like something, happened as well. I would feel like you're so used to it.
Yeah.
Push button. It felt so good every single year. And then you're like, oh, it was just 1 year. Oh, that was just 2 years, even though it was at our own house. Oh, 3 years. I mean, you search. I mean, I know for a 16-year span, man, I was waking up every day thinking, man, I don't know if Michigan's ever really going to be able to turn the tables on Ohio State again. These quarterbacks, they keep finding them every time. Even when one of their guys gets hurt, like JT Barrett, the other guy comes in. And then Cardell Jones comes in, a third string guy comes in, and it just never ended. And so I would feel like something that has been taken from me as well. So I actually understand, about how an Ohio State fan, could feel like, their life is empty and they just don't have any answers. And so they have to, I would do the same thing if that was them.
Well, and they focused on it so much that they forgot to score on Missouri of more than 3 points. So, listen, if it's taking their focus and they forgot how to offense, that works for me. Like, so hey,
Losing bowl games suck. I've been there, so I know. I'm sure if I was an Ohio State fan, I'd say, yeah, but Maserati Marv wasn't playing, and either were another half dozen of our guys.
Yeah,
that's what I'd be saying too.
So a couple quick things before we get to who's staying and who's going from the player perspective. When you're doing your shopping on Amazon, as many of us do from time to time, link in any description on the Voice of College Football will get you to the Amazon link, same shopping experience. And then Mark Rogers gets a couple of bucks and we can continue doing stuff like this and bring on awesome guests and great content. So that'll help with that. You can also be a Patreon member or YouTube member for as low as $2.99 and do that and support Voice of College Football. And we have a merch store with new merch, including new Michigan merch. And Dennis, I don't think you saw this last time. We now have Michigan national champion mugs, including we got t-shirts. We got, I really like the look of that. Just having those words in the same general area, national champion Michigan Wolverines.
Nice mug.
Just feels good. You got shirts, you got flags, you got shirts for the kids, you got shoes, you got Voice of College Football socks. We never had socks before, but our buddy Joey Foster hooked us up. Jigsaw puzzles and so on. But my favorite is probably the dog bowl. So for those of you with furry friends who are also college football fans, get yourself a Voice of College Football pet bowl right there. And we even have one for the I believe we have one for the Michigan channel as well. So get yourself a pet bowl or some of the other things here. And our buddy Moose, I believe, is putting put the link in for us. Moose coming in the clutch as he always does. So thank you for that. So check out the link. It's right there. Might as well at least peruse.
John, I'm not selling anything, but I for Christmas I got a mug. You're just showing me a mug, and you were talking about drinking tea earlier. This is the first that I've used it. It's supposed to be keep my drink at 139 degrees, and I've waited halfway through the show. I mean, it's sitting here. I guess you can't see my little LED light that's on here, but I'm now ready to see if the tea has stayed hot or not.
Let's see here.
Woo! Piping hot, 139 degrees.
Go.
Not too shabby.
How about that?
Not too bad. No, control it from my phone here. I'm gonna crank it up to 140 degrees. I think even I can handle that. Not bad. No more cold tea.
And we've got my mom commenting. She runs a PR and kind of music entertainment business, Lady Lake Entertainment, and she helped us get our intro song. So every episode of Michigan Wolverines Live, when you hear the music, that's David Martinez. One of her artists. So we thank her for helping us out on that. And she loves the dog bowl as well. Okay. Players coming, transferring, staying. The next segment in our Aftermath series, right? Who's going, who's staying? And of course, we had a heartfelt letter from JJ McCarthy, who I think, look, JJ McCarthy said when he was recruited here, he said he was going to do everything he could to beat Ohio State. He said he was going to do everything he could to win a Big Ten championship, and he was going to do everything he could to win a national championship. And he did all those things. So as far as I'm concerned, go be great. Go to the pros, get your bag. Hopefully you go first round. And, not everyone here will get first round, but I think a decent amount will go early. Blake Corum and Keegan especially. Someone's going to need some good linemen, in the NFL. So Keegan and Zinner, I think, are gonna do very well. But it is quite a few. But we knew that. We knew, Dennis, when this season was happening, that we were going to have a lot of people in their last year, and that's why we did the One More Year Fund. We called it the Last Dance here on Michigan Wolverines Live. And so now it's happening. People are going pro. And so whether it's JJ or some of these others, I mean, is this kind of what you expected? What's your thoughts? Because I know JJ was that was the one that people were kind of on the fence about. Most of these makes a lot of sense. But we thought maybe JJ might come back. So,
I was holding out a little bit of hope that Michigan, when it came to name, image, and likeness, they made a decision that they weren't getting in on the front end, which is illegal to promise players money, by the way, to come on in. But they were going to get in on the back end, and they were going to reward players for staying at Michigan. You talked about the one more year fund last year. And I don't know how much was going to be enough to keep guys like Trente Jones, to keep Junior Colson, Jalen Harrell, Braden McGregor. But I was thinking that those guys might have been able to have, hey, what about one more year or whatever that they were going to come up with. There had to be a number there. So not that it's really disappointing. I wanted to see if that was going to be able to happen, because that was Michigan's plan. But what has changed, of course, is the national championship. And that changes my thoughts on everything, and I think it changed a lot for these guys as well. Anybody that was thinking about, hey, I could come back, maybe I could make more money even at Michigan than going pro. But hey, I just won a championship. So, I think that when that happens, you just say, this is, one of the greatest years ever, not the greatest year of Michigan football. And you wish everybody luck, and, and you move on. I mean, that's the thing with those guys. Like I said, there was a few that you could go in there, and it was going to be interesting to see if Michigan was going to be able to retain them, but they have not. It's like all of this, like, does it hurt recruiting that Harbaugh's out doing this, what he's doing with the NFL, which he's done for the last few years? It doesn't help, that's for sure, but they won the championship. And if Michigan didn't win the championship and this was the boat they were in, and we were sitting around having to, I don't know if it would be selling it or not, but I guess it would be like, hey, let's say they lost to Alabama. But, they beat Ohio State 3 years in a row. They won the Big Ten 3 years in a row. They've got that Big Ten championship ring. They made it to the college football playoff. This was the year that they talked about, taking that next step. And then, of course, they took 2 more steps, and finishing it off, and they did it. So it's storybook. So all of that, I don't know. What was your question? Is this what we expected? I don't know. I was expecting them to win a national championship, but I know how difficult it is. And those 2 games against Washington, the pressure cooker, even though Michigan went at 34-13, it was still a pressure cooker in that game. And obviously, coming down in overtime and beating Alabama 27-20, those games live on, forever in our memories. And it's those 2 games, when I look at any of the players that could have been coming back, or, hey, even JJ McCarthy, I'll just keep looking to the Rose Bowl, and I'll keep looking to NRG Stadium on January the 8th. And that'll be my reminder of why Michigan's in the spot that they are. And I'll take it every single time.
Absolutely. And Dependent Fanatic is mentioning we need an every year fund. So there is a campaign going on right now called the Those Who Stay NIL campaign with Champion Circle. It is cracked officially $703,014. So they're officially 70% towards their $1 million goal in terms of fundraising. So that's not including the donor money that's also part of what they're trying to do to keep players at the university. So,
Well, the one thing about, sorry to jump in there on you, but
that's fine.
John, the whole NIL thing, for Michigan, it has been an interesting couple of days. Yesterday, the Fab Five, for the first time since they actually played at Michigan together, were in the basketball arena for the first time. Because we all know of what went on and everything else there.
Mm-hmm.
Since that, those were, the ensuing years were really dark days for Michigan and for a lot of Michigan fans, certainly the alums. They said, we're never going to have anything like this again. Now, everything has changed when it comes down to money in players. But my point here is that Michigan fans and alums were told, no, we're never giving any money. We're not paying the players. And, and Michigan has been, I don't know if they're the only one, they certainly seem like they are, one of the only of the top 25 teams that are like, no, we are not playing we're promising you money. So what that has done, I think you build that culture of, no, we're not doing it this way. I don't think people are used to opening up their wallets and saying, wait a second, this doesn't even feel right. Where, and nothing against Ohio State, they love it. You got a couple of Ohio State fans that are watching this, but certainly every Georgia fan, all the teams in the SEC for years, they were saying, give Jalen money, give his dad money,
Sure.
give Braden's mom a bag full of cash, give Michael Barrett, give these guys pastors suitcases of cash, and everybody's they're used to it. Give them a car, give them a house, give them a loan, give them everything, and everybody's kind of used to it. Michigan, we're not used to all of that, so it's going to take a little bit of time to get up to speed on that.
Yeah, I do think that our approach, which I think there's merit to, it is just that Michigan's not going to give a 17-year-old who hasn't proven anything on the college field $2 million and accommodations for their family and work accommodations and all this stuff like allegedly Bryce Underwood received at LSU. There's talk of that being a $5 million, $7 million package all in with all the perks, whatever it wound up actually being. Good for them, good for him, good for his family. In a year, if he doesn't make it as a starter, guess what? He's going to be in the transfer portal, and maybe Michigan picks him up if they need a quarterback. Maybe someone else picks him up. So I think the only exception I would say would be a player like that. Like if someone is just such a lights out player that it's obvious. Like I think Jaden Davis got something. I can't prove it, but I think he got a car. I think he got something. But we just don't give bags and we don't give sponsorship, and that's just how Michigan's been. And I think that's where they're going to draw the line. Afterwards, once you've proven it on the field, Blake Corum was a 7-figure NIL valuation. They're getting NIL. Everybody who was kind of part of the team for a couple of years. So I think there's merit to that.
Yeah, the flip side, which isn't nice to think about, is that if this started 2 or 3 years ago, Michigan wouldn't have gotten J.J. McCarthy or Blake Corum because those guys would have gone somewhere else for the money. And, the two guys, you think that you make, except you're talking about, and maybe they did, say, hey, Jaden, we might not, throw you a 7-figure deal, but here's a car. Sure, that might have happened. But when you have guys that are in your own backyard, like the last 2 quarterbacks, Dante Moore, Detroit, and Bryce Underwood's, stone's throw down the street. I mean, those are guys that it really hurts, where you feel it with NIL. And that's where I go back to 97 again, because, the honeymoon lasted, it was great all summer and everything else. Michigan's the champ. But then they came out and they got blasted and lost by like 20 points, 16, 20 points to Notre Dame. And then they got beat by 20 at home to Syracuse, went 0-2 to start out the season. I can remember being on the radio. The honeymoon's over. And yet they had the number one recruiting class. Drew Henson from down the street in Brighton was they call him 5-star quarterbacks, but he was a USA. I guess he was the punter that made the first, but Michigan had the number one recruiting class. So, you had that, even though they started 0-2 and the honeymoon was over. And Michigan doesn't have that part right now. But, I'm not telling everybody that the honeymoon should be over. I'm telling you the exact opposite. The party is still going.
Yeah. I think it's gonna depend on a lot. This is gonna continue to evolve. Eventually, I think you're probably gonna see a semi-pro situation where players get paid directly by the university. You'll have salary caps just like in the NFL. It's coming, especially since the SEC and the Big Ten are gaining more and more power as super conferences, and the NCAA dwindles in power. I think we're eventually headed to a semi-pro, and then it'll at least be formalized and in public and in writing, like what these contracts are and how much the signing bonus is and how much the base is and what the incentives are. That's how it should be. I can't stand this like in the shadows. We don't know what these people are getting. It's all rumors. We see a couple of NIL contracts like the Jalen Rashada contract for like $12 million for the Gator Collective. We saw stuff like that, but I actually, at this point, if we're going to be paying everybody, you might as well formalize it and like make it transparent. And then Michigan will get to do the same and actually pay everybody. And Michigan's got, $20 billion endowment. So I think they're going to benefit pretty well under a semi-pro system.
Yeah, I know those endowments. People always tell me they're earmarked specifically for things. But your point, Michigan's got a lot of alums, and if they generate over $200 million a year, they're up there with anybody. So if they can actually pay players and compete in that regard, then they can compete with anybody in terms of throwing the money around. Right now, you're just not supposed to, tell them that they're getting that money up front, even though everybody's doing it. And even Ohio State, which is a bigger to your fans that are in there that are wanting to run out the, you guys are cheaters. You guys are bigger cheaters, and you didn't win anything. So, try something else than paying players, which is a level 1 violation. Try to work those bylaws like Harbaugh and company were. Go to those gray areas. But you know what? Here's the catch. There can be something where you end up getting tripped up and then people freak out in season and get all over you, or just stay blatantly committing level 1 violations. Whatever. You guys take the choice. Whatever makes you feel good.
Well, FSU did get hit. So someone finally got hit for NIL, because I think a staffer was driving a recruit to some type of donation event or whatever. It was something that was like another layer than just like sliding people bags under the table or doing sponsorship deals, that are adjacent to the university. So it shows that people can get hit with NIL violations. So you can't be so blatant about it.
Stay with the cash under the table. Don't go to something where you pay for with a credit card or they actually can see the funds. Just say, hey, there's a briefcase on the other chair there. There's 200,000 in it. Just take that and don't say anything about it. Or in Underwood's case, you can just say, look, we're the 7 million's coming your way or whatever it is. And just we just have to wait till you get in here. Then it's yours. Here's a little cash, to tide you over on that duffel bag on the way out.
There you go. So staying, and there are quite a few staying, but some of the notable ones that could have gone either way, Donovan Edwards would have to lead that charge. And I think that part of the reason he's coming back, he had an injury and it took him a while to kind of get back, but anybody who was hating on him, He heard that, he harnessed it, and then in the national championship game, all of a sudden, it was like the old Don was back. And he was just running up and down that field for, I think, the second 2 longest runs ever in the national championship game. I think only Derrick Henry had a longer run than Donovan Edwards' 2 that he had that were the 40-plus yard runs. So congrats on coming back. And he's obviously, I think, going to be RB1 alongside Khalil Mullings, and Ben Hall will probably be a 3-headed monster at running back.
Yeah, I hate to pile on Ohio State fans like it seems like I'm doing here tonight, but that's the one that you put up in the chat. I go back to last year when he ran a 75-yarder and an 85-yarder at Columbus and had over 200 yards. And when he ripped off the 41-yarder and the 46-yarder, went over 100 yards in the national championship game. That's the Donovan Edwards that, I mean, he's an explosive back, and you give him an inch and he can take a mile. He's a big-time home run hitter. He had that nice touchdown, I think Michigan's first touchdown against Penn State, in the back half of the season to really get it going. So, Donovan Edwards is he's an excellent back. He's not Blake Corum. That's, 4th and a 1 might not be the guy that you're looking for. He's got a little bit of Barry Sanders in him while I'm, mixing in the Lions and going back to the yesteryear. Barry would get in there and he'd go for 4 yards, 2 yards, 1 yard, 26, 1, -2, 60. That's kind of Donovan Edwards. You got to be patient with him. You got to feed him. And you just got to give him a little bit of daylight because he can hit a home run for you, as we have seen repeatedly. And you said it before we came on. He's a big game player. On the road at Ohio State, national championship game. Give me a guy like that rather than Donovan Edwards, rolling up for 300 yards against UNLV, 160 against Bowling Green. But when it comes down to Penn State, nothing. When it comes down to Ohio State, nothing. When it comes down to the national championship game, nothing. It comes up big when the lights are the brightest. Those are the kind of guys you want on your team.
Absolutely. Speaking of bright lights and shining the brightest, how about Rod Moore coming back, who got that game-winning interception against the Buckeyes this year? He's coming back, as well as some of these other players. Kenneth Grant is somebody who Moose has been really on since day one, and he's shown up this year in some really big spots. So some of these players coming back, I think, will contribute to having, the offense may need work, but I think the defense, you're looking at a championship level or a playoff, at least a 12-team playoff level defense.
Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant on the inside there, Rayshon Benny, whenever he's expected to get back, that trio is going to be as good as anybody in the country when you talk about it. Josiah Stewart coming back and Derek Moore, when it was Jalen Milroe on that 4th down in the Rose Bowl and goal, those were the 2 edges that were out there for Michigan on the biggest play of the season for the defense. And both of those guys, I think that it's been documented now. You've probably watched that play a few times like I have. Stewart took a 350-pound offensive lineman and threw him into Milroe, and Moore was crashing down and beat his guy. So if Stewart didn't make the play, I think Rod Moore might have been able to get him as well. So, those 2 guys right there, you start looking at it, Michigan loses 9 really starters on offense and 7 on defense. But, McGregor and Harrell. But, Stewart and Derek Moore, you put them in there, you feel like they were starters. So, maybe you're not feeling like that, they lose that much. And Rod Moore started out the season injured, had that first bad play against Rutgers. But, he came out in the late in the season. He's a great player. It wouldn't surprise me if he was the captain next year for Michigan, Rod Moore, who was 19 and then switched up to number 9.
Well, one of our friends of the program, Mike G, is hanging out with us, and he did give you a compliment there, Fithian rules. So everybody in the community happy you swung by. But I think to wrap this whole thing up in a bow, I just think when you're looking at national championship level elite teams, you're going to have an exodus. You're going to have an exodus of coaching. You're going to have an exodus of talent. As long as you can retain decent chunk of it, and then pick people up in the portal like Michigan has proven that they're able to do every single year. If they need a lineman, they're going to go get a lineman. If they need a defender, they're going to go get a defender. They'll probably get a quarterback. I'm sure they were looking at Talia. He got denied, but they're going to find somebody who's a transfer quarterback to compete against Alex Orji, to compete against Jaden Davis, to compete against Jaden Denegal.
I think all of that is true. I think obviously the big piece is Jim Harbaugh, and it's not 100% that he's going to the NFL, although it's going to feel like that with every day that goes by until he either signs back with Michigan or stays with Michigan or goes to the NFL. That's the gigantic piece. If that happens, Michigan's in the driver's seat. Expect more seasons like these last 3. If that happens, if not, then, you got to start looking at, all right, the contingency plans. But, I'm not making contingency plans until I see him go.
There you go. Yep. Well, I think the next couple of days will determine a lot, and kind of who bids in the Harbaugh sweepstakes. I've heard Raiders might consider drafting J.J. McCarthy to entice Harbaugh to go there. There could be the Cowboys in play. There could obviously the Chargers have already met with him once. Apparently it went very well. So we don't really know yet is the bottom line. But at least we had a regent respond to us. Stuff is happening. We don't know the extent of it. But hopefully we get some clarity soon on if it's going to be Jim Harbaugh or if it's going to be Sharon Moore, who, by the way, beat Ohio State. So guess what? Either way, we've got a proven winner who beat Ohio State. Not too shabby.
Yeah, cross your fingers for Harbaugh. Let's go. Nothing against Sharon Moore. I like him, but I'll cross the Sharon Moore bridge when I have to.
Absolutely. Well, Dennis, thank you for coming back to Michigan Wolverines Live. Please go ahead and, let people know if they're under a rock or wherever, where they can find you, what you're up to, and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, well, I tweet my tail off a lot of times during games. So at Dennis Fithian, that's the best spot there. And I do have a podcast 3 times a week. And then after every Michigan football and basketball game, at the Maize and Blue Review, and on that feed is the same spot that you can watch or listen to the podcast. So
there you go. So the link is literally right there to follow him. No excuse. Everybody do it because he dedicated an hour to us. So please at least give him a follow and check out his shows and everything else. Dennis, thanks for coming back. Go Blue, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Enjoy the championship.
I will. All right. So we just had Dennis joining us there, and I just have a few final housekeeping notes, and then we're going to wrap here. So we've got coming up, I do want to let everybody know about our programming note. So coming up every Friday now at 7 p.m. Eastern, Mark Rogers, voice of college football, is going to be taking your calls on the main channel with the Big Ten live show. So you can pick up the phone, dial the number, and call Mark and give him your take on the Big Ten. But the Ocho ain't going anywhere either. That's right, folks. Starting Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, the Ocho becomes its own show on the Voice of College Football main channel. We will still focus on the Big Ten, and we are going to go through every one of the 18 Big Ten teams for 2024 and do a deep dive. And we're going to start with Illinois and Sonny Verma, who's the host of the Illini cast, who's going to be joining me as the first special guest on the Ocho. And we'll be talking for about 20 to 30 minutes. And then we're going to bring on the Voice of College Football community panel, as we do every week, to give their take on the news of the week and what's going on. They can give their take on Illinois as well, and then we can talk about all the breaking news and all the contract stuff and all the comings and goings and everything else. So the Big Ten show was big enough to become 2 shows. That's how how popular it was, and that is because of your participation that we're able to do this. So tune in Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, Mark Rogers, voice of college football, and pick up the phone and call him and let him know your take on the Big Ten, on your team, on what's going on. Because I'm going to be tuned in. It's going to be a great time. And then, of course, the Ocho is debuting as its own show this coming Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern with Sonny from the Illini cast, and then the voice of college football community. So we're very excited about that. And thank you, Dependent Fanatic. I tossed around, like, what are we going to do? How are we going to split it up? Should I continue with the Ocho? And, it's just so popular and people really love it that I said, let's keep it going and let's make it like a really special thing. And let's bring on a special guest every week to give their take on one particular team. So no one can say, John, you're too biased towards Michigan, or, you talk about Ohio State too much. No. We're going to be talking Illinois football for 30 minutes. We're going to be talking Northwestern football, Rutgers football, Wisconsin football, USC, UCLA, all of them. We're going to do them all. 18 schools. So Illinois is the first one. And thank you so much, Dependent Fanatic, for supporting that. And Mike for supporting as well the Mark Rogers call-in show as well, which should be really good. Gizmo is hanging around. So, normally I do these programs in the business center, and I have my microphone and it's nice and professional. We have been dealing with torrential weather. So I have been, I don't want to leave my dog, obviously, to do that. Starting next week, we'll be back in the professional setup with my mic and business center and everything else, to really give these shows the professional touch that they deserve. As much as I know everybody loves Gizmo, you'll probably see him from time to time if I do shows here, but we want to get back to the business center and do the shows there. Let's see. Orgy, I'd like to see his arm strength. I think we saw it in the spring game once. I'd like to see it. I think Orgy would be a great QB1, and he could run RPOs really well. He's run RPOs during this season, although it's usually R and not P, but he's been running them. So I'd like to see what happens when the pass threat's thrown in. Then we got, I can't wait for the Ocho. We got John doing the Ocho. I'm doing the Diaz. Okay. We'll have to tune in for that too, I guess. We're going to spend 30 minutes on every team. I've got a Rutgers media person that I can call. We've got a Spartan, we had Spartans Illustrated on the show this year. We can bring him back maybe. So absolutely, we'll have every single, and I will try to be non-biased in my journalism, because here at the Voice of College Football, we believe in Big J journalism. In fact, I'm going to put this on the screen just because I am particularly proud of this and what we saw, and that's that Regent Jordan Acker. Okay, this is an actual member of the Board of Regents, actually responded to me, and so he gave his take on the Michigan Jim Harbaugh negotiations as much as he could in public. But he basically said, I'm not going to talk about this in public or through the press, which, that's the right take. And we appreciate that an actual Board of Regent member responded to me and took the time to do that. So very exciting. Other things that are happening here, very exciting things at the Voice of College Football. We have Oregon Ducks Live coming up next at 10:15 p.m. Eastern. So every week, exploring with Ben and his cast of characters, they talk about Oregon Ducks football every week on the Oregon channel, the Voice of College Football, at 10:15 p.m. Eastern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the link so that everybody can go over there, hit the like button, support them, And, all I ask, just let him know John sent you. Just let him know John sent you from the Michigan channel. So Oregon Ducks live at 10:15. And everybody can go ahead and head over there after this show concludes. Does MSU have Wi-Fi? Good question. We should look into that. I know that the Big House doesn't, because I was there last year. They still don't have Wi-Fi, really. It's pretty rough. So hopefully that changes soon. I know that it's actually an FCC issue. I looked into why they haven't, and it's an FCC issue, and there's regulations that are preventing them from distributing the Wi-Fi the way that they want. It's a whole thing. There's actually reasons why the Big House doesn't have really good Wi-Fi, but hopefully soon that they can get around that. Yes, brand new Big Ten, absolutely. With Orgy back, we changed the offense, which is okay. RPO. And of course, yes, Gizmo is the OG. The password is Big Mac. I love that. All right, everybody. So thank you all so much for coming by. And like I said, coming up next is Oregon Ducks live at the Voice of College Football. So everybody go ahead and check that out and hit the like button for them as well. Thank you for sticking by us with Dennis Fithian. Always great to have him showing up. Make sure to follow him on his Twitter at Dennis Fithian, as well as Michigan Rivals, the Maize and Blue Review Twitter account, and check that stuff out. And as always, until next time, for everybody here at the Voice of College Football, my name's John D'Adamo saying, go Blue. And it's good to be the champion.